of the country's polarizing debate over immigration policy over the past year under the second Trump administration, which wrongfully deported him to the country of El Salvador, and he was in prison there at the notorious Secot mega prison for several months before he was brought back to the U.S., Mugo, but as you know, only to face criminal charges related to allegations by the Justice Department that he smuggled undocumented immigrants into the U.S. along the U.S.-Mexico border. He has pleaded not guilty to those charges, but what the federal judge in Tennessee is weighing now is the critical question of whether the Justice Department and the Trump administration overall move to prosecute him criminally only because Abreu Garcia successfully challenged his deportation and because he was able to convince judges that he was deported without due process. He is deciding the question, Mugo, essentially, whether the administration only prosecuted him to retaliate against his actions and his legal challenges. So that will be a very important step taken by the judge. We'll see what he decides, but for the time being, his lawyers, Kilmer Abreu Garcia's lawyers, say that this criminal case has to be dismissed.
And Camilo, you also have some reporting about a refugee who was found dead in Buffalo, New York.
That's right. Local officials in Buffalo, New York, Mugo, are investigating the circumstances surrounding the death of a refugee from Myanmar or Burma who was found dead on Tuesday. Nurul Amin Shah Alam had been in local custody in Erie County for the past year on assault and weapons charges tied to an incident from last year involving Buffalo police. After his release from local custody last week, Mugo, he was briefly taken into custody by Border Patrol agents until they realized, Mugo, that he was actually not subject to immigration arrest or deportation because he's here as a legal and lawful refugee who underwent an extensive vetting process, to come here to the U.S. Border Patrol says that agents from that agency left him at a local coffee shop, but then his body was found 5 days later, actually. In a statement, the mayor of Buffalo said, a vulnerable man, nearly blind and unable to speak English, was left alone on a cold winter night with no known attempt to leave him in a safe and secure location. That decision from U.S. Customs and Border Protection was unprofessional and inhumane. CBP, in turn, is saying that Border Patrol agents offered Mr. Alam a courtesy ride, which he chose to accept to a coffee shop, determined to be a warm, safe location near his last known address. He showed no signs of distress, mobility issues, or disabilities requiring special assistance. So we're still trying to gather more facts, Mugo, but it's obviously a very tragic circumstance.
Yeah, just very sad. As you were reading off all that information, a very, very sad case. You have some breaking news. This was just over the last few hours. Columbia University said one of its students was detained by DHS agents. What do we know about this one?
Well, Columbia University officials are saying, Mugo, that one of their students was detained this morning by Department of Homeland Security immigration agents at the federal level, and they're accusing the agent of lying to get inside of a residential building. According to the acting president of the university, this morning at approximately 6:30 a.m., federal agents from DHS entered a Columbia residential building and detained the student. We are working to gather more information. That's what the president said of the university. It is important to reiterate, the president said, that all law enforcement agents must have a judicial warrant or judicial subpoena to access non-public areas of the university. We have contacted the Department of Homeland Security to get more information about who was potentially arrested and why, the legal grounds for that arrest, but have yet to hear back. We should underscore, Mugo, that this case is reminiscent of the arrest of another Columbia University student and pro-Palestinian activist, Mahmoud Khalil, last year. He was, of course, the subject of an ICE detention proceeding that lasted for months. He's back now out of custody and back in his home, but he's still facing deportation proceedings, Mugo.
Okay, Camilo Montoya Galvez, great reporting. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.